top floor apparently. And then they got a penthouse suite. Ooh, tornado warnings. That'd be okay. I'd be happy dying with you here.
Ashley would probably be awake. She drives nice.
Some of these recurring hauntings come from that we're going to share with you guys this evening. So hundreds of years ago, before this area was established by European settlers, these grounds were considered sacred by the Osage tribe. And it was because of our natural cold springs here. They strongly believed that our waters had both healing and purification powers. It's actually said that the Osage let other tribes pass through the area access to these springs as long as they came in peace without their weapons and did not settle within the sacred grounds. They were trying to keep this area as pure as possible. And they were able to maintain that purity until the early 1800s, but during the Indian Relocation Act, the Osage were forced to sell this land to the U.S. government. They went on to live in the Indian Territories, which later became Oklahoma. So when that happened, our springs here were abandoned. But they were rediscovered in the 1850s by a gentleman named Dr. Alva Jackson. And he lived in Berryville, which for some of you guys might be familiar, it's about 10 miles away from here. So he came here on a hunting trip with his teenage son, and at that point they rediscovered the Basin Spring. Now, he'd been looking for this spring for 20 years before he found it. He pieced together different Native American legends describing the spring, talking about its powers, hoping to uncover the mystery of where it was located. So when he found the spring, he began to use that water to treat his son. His son was suffering from an affliction known as granulated eyelids, which I looked up. It's not very pretty. It is a chronic inflammation of the eyelids, unsightly, uncomfortable. So he was using this water to wash his son's eyes out. Well, a few days after beginning that treatment, the condition cleared up completely. So he began to bottle that water. He was selling it to surrounding communities as Dr. Jackson's Eye Tonic. And when the Civil War broke out, he was using that spring water to treat the Union and Confederate soldiers that passed through this area. So when the Civil War ended, the word of the healing springs began to spread. So at first we had a few hundred people beginning to gather, making makeshift shelters around that basin spring. But within 1 year of our town officially being named, which is Eureka, Greek for I found it, and springs for the spring water, our population exploded to 15,000. Now all those people coming here, sick and afflicted, looking for the healing spring, building structures on top of each other without sanitation or code. So by 1880, 80% of the springs here in town were polluted to the point of being hazardous.
So Arkansas's governor, aware of what was happening up here as we finished his term during the Reconstruction, he formed a group called the Eureka Improvement Company to put the infrastructure in place. They laid out a survey, they made lots for everyone to purchase, and laid the plumbing for the entire town. The Eureka Improvement Company was also instrumental in partnering with the railroad to bring tracks to town so people could get here more easily. And we know that they built this hotel. They built it with the carriage set in mind, the wealthiest of the wealthy of that time. And they built this in just 2 years for $284,000. When it opened in 1886, it was the grandest, most luxurious hotel west of the Mississippi. Their guests came in the first 2 decades somewhat like a private club, invitation only, all of them knowing one another somewhat. Powell Clayton, the former governor, he had come here during the Civil War, but he decided to stay in Arkansas and he loved it. He knew a lot of people in high places. He built himself a fine suite here on the lobby level, the one-on-one, which we'll be doing the testing in tomorrow. So the guests enjoyed the finest of luxuries here. They had electric lighting with chandeliers and Edison bulbs throughout. They had luxury suites with restrooms, a tennis court lawn, a swimming pool, and a bowling alley in the basement. Everything was grand until around the turn of the century. That craze for the water died down, and the belief in its healing properties also declined a bit. And then in 1907, the stock market took a little dive, and in 1908, they turned the building into a college.
A college from Little Rock purchased the hotel and opened up the college and conservatory for young ladies, again of the upper class, of the carriage class. And if you'd like to check out the stories about those fabulous women, they've turned out a lot of interesting women into business, math, science, the arts, theater. This is not a foo-foo finishing school for the elite. And you can go up to the 4th floor right across from the restaurant and read all about these fabulous women. Well, this combination of it, they also kept it as a resort only in the summertime, and at that point in time, and they opened it up to the public. So this combination went on for about 25 years until the Great Depression. And then not even the well-heeled had money to send their girls to school. So by 1934, they both closed, and it sat vacant for a couple of years. And then comes Norman Baker. Norman was not a doctor. He had no intention of curing people of cancer. He wanted to make money. He was a charlatan businessman that had his hands into many businesses, politics, everything. And this was his 3rd clinic. There were a lot of people that were not happy with him. So by the time he got here, he was a bit paranoid, and you'll hear about that on the tours as well. But he was only here for less than 3 years, but he left us quite an impression of him more, don't you see? He also loved vaudeville surf, and he did a mentalist show of Lady Tango. He believed in the power of the mind to heal, and he used a lot of that here at the clinic. Have his patients use a lot of that as well. Well, after he left for the next 40 years, 50 years, it was open and closed, a lot of different owners. There was a Chicago family that came here in the 40s and brought the mob with them, took advantage of the underground part of the city for prohibition. And in the 60s, there was a fire that took out the entire 4th floor, upper floors, really damaged them badly. And in the 70s, there was Morris the cat. And he was here for 21 years, and they say he's still here. So if you just felt something go around your leg, it was probably Morris. And in 1997, it was up for sale again. There were several bidders. One had never even been here, wanted to dismantle it and use the stones someplace else. And Marty and Elise Rennick actually had come here to check out. Marty's passion was music boxes like the ones in the lobby. And they had come here to take a look at the music box that Norman Baker had actually invented. E.V.P.s were everywhere back then, but this is a calliophone. E.V.P.s were run on steam, very, very big and very dangerous and volatile. He invented the calliophone run on air, and it was made smaller, so now it was portable. They came here to check that out, fell in love with Eureka. They bought the Basin Park Hotel, started living in that and renovating it, and then got the bid on this lady, thank God. Eventually they bought the Gaviola Chapel, which is the Intrigue Theater on the Loop, and also the War Eagle Mill. And they're constantly very generous to theater groups and children's groups as well. So we'll show you a picture of them. Here fumbling through her purse. She said, "Can I help you? Would you lose something?" And she says, "Oh, no, thank you. I'm just looking for my keys." And then, okay, I mean, the lady's shaking her, scratching her head because what's about this door? No handle, no number. They even closed in the lock. That's because a couple decades ago they turned it into a suite. So now the entrance to 419, the second most requested room in the house, is around the corner. But this is where Theodora shows up because this was her room during Norman Baker's time. She was either an assistant or one of his head nurses. And she's a quirky little gal. If she likes you, she'll straighten your room for you while you're gone for the day. If she's not sure, she'll pack your bags right by the door. And she does it all the time. Not every time, but she does it a lot. 4 or 5, 6 pictures. Because that's a 100-year-old mirror down there. So you can have some fun with that possibly. Come back at different times and see what you might So, Brecky shows up many different ways. He'll also show up as blue swirls and streaks in between groups of people. But usually he's a full-bodied apparition, and he's wearing this outfit. But he was the son of the dean of the college and Mary Breckenridge, hence Brecky. She was a teacher here. And he was a happy little kid. He had a donkey and a big dog, and the college. Michael actually never lived in room 218. We think he's possibly our very first spirit. He was one of the Irish stonemasons building the hotel, and in 1885 he was up on the scaffolding above room 218, and he saw a young lady come into the garden, started flirting with her. Well, he lost his footing, and he fell to his death on a beam in room 218. And he didn't learn his lesson. He's still flirting. He also is quite the prankster. He's a poltergeist, which means mischievous spirit in German. And so you never see Michael, but he's around. The whole staff knows him. He hides things, moves things, turns lights on and off, shuts and opens doors. So this is Michael's room right here. So ask a lot of questions when you come in here. We get more stories out of this room every week. Doesn't matter what day of the week or day of the time of the year it is. He's just constantly active. No offense to the Irish, but maybe they're having a few pints before.
Oh, Michael.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Michael. Hi, Michael.
So, another spirit, room 212, room 212, room 212, Doc Ellis's office. Doc Ellis was the in-house doctor when the hotel opened. He was a really young man, and he was a homeopathic holistic doctor, and he also had a few businesses in town. One was a newspaper. Actually, if you drive around town, you'll see Ellis Street, and you'll also see the Ellis Building on Spring Street. So he was really well known in the area. But one night, his newspaper was burning. He went running to check it out, and he had a heart attack and died. But he's still running around here, and people see him as a really big orb going through 212 and the elevator right through.
One photo has something cool and interesting, the rest will be very boring.
And remember I told you that Marty's passion was music boxes? Well, the one that's behind this tent area, there's only two of them made. And the other one was the company that made it on the Titanic, but it wasn't completed on time, so they had to just talk about ESP. And also the one on the other side spent about 14 years in Disneyland, and they can play those for you anytime. Also, we had a head chef there for about 17 years, and he used to do his paperwork at night. One night he's in there by himself, and he hears something fall to the floor, picks it up. It's a coin from the 1940s. Just fell from the sea. He was very extravagant as well as a charlatan businessman. And this is how he painted the traditional lobby while he was here. Pass that way, and pass it that way. Looked like a Santa Fe circus. Kind of tacky, but in a neat way. He also loved the color purple. Purple car, he had purple pen, purple clothing, and even our chimneys out in the front of the hotel are still lavender purple to this day. And a really neat coincidence is that our current owners came here from Connecticut with a purple sports car, so it was like they were destined to have this place. And also, just a little bit about when you're outside, the pain asylum, or the annex, is off to the, when you go out here, it's off to the right. You can see it. You can see that the top two floors were added on later, and the very top floor is the pain asylum. And room 3500 is the room on the left. So you might see her walk by, you never know. But also, the balconies used to be beautiful, wooden balconies with hand-carved railings, but Norman wanted it more institutional looking. So he put in the concrete and the metal, which is a kind of a shame, but I won't want to diss Norman. But he supposedly wanted his patients to roll out there and get fresh air and sunshine. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but we'll give him the benefit of that. This is the elevator room right over here. So the nurse between 3 and 5 in the morning takes this elevator all the way down here and takes the path we're taking. So that might be something to do. You never know what you might pick up. We're going to be passing beautiful spa rooms. They've only been here for about 8 years. Before that, In the history of the hotel, it was staff quarters and dormitory rooms down here, but when Norman was here, it was part of his autopsy area. So it smells fabulous now, like spa salts, but back then it smelled like formaldehyde. So keep that in mind as we walk through. And they don't tell you now, before your massage, that you were in the morgue. Room for that. And now we actually have some of the original jars and bottles in there, so you can take a look at them. It's really incredible. So let's go quickly into the other room. We're going to come back and spend some time in here. You can take a lot of pictures. And again, like I said, it's well worth it. Just snap pictures down there because you never know what you're going to get. And even though it's dark, you don't have to necessarily use your flash. I would try a little bit of both if you want to get the real Father's machine shop. Then he joined the vaudeville circuit with Lady Tangley, and that's where he heard about the calliope. And he went to his father's machine shop and came up with the calliophone run on air and made it a lot smaller. Sold the first one before it was even completed. And he made $1.5 million very quickly having somebody manufacture calliophons. So he also used to put that out on the balconies on the weekends. He thought those rich people would enjoy that merry-go-round sound. I'm not sure about that. But he also wanted his patients to be joyful. So now Norman also opened his first clinic in Muscatine. He wasn't there very long before it was pressure to shut it down. Probably from medical associations. They have a little clout. They didn't really like him too much. They were always fighting in the newspapers. And he used to say, call the American AMA, the American Meat Cutters Association. And so they either said keep the clinic open or get rid of Norman. They told Norman to leave and kept the clinic open. So he went to Texas, opened another clinic, and then he got a bigger radio station this time. He's got this huge signal that reaches the Aleutian Islands. You could have Norman Baker on your radio anywhere in North America back then. It's crazy. Well, he wasn't there very long when someone didn't like something somewhere, came down there, shot up part of his clinic, and blew up his new radio tower. So that's why he was here with dogs and Tommy Guns. He knew they were out to get him. So he had tried to go back to Muscatine. They wouldn't let him in there, so he ran for governor, and there's his poster running for governor. That didn't work out for him. But he had been to Eureka at one point in time, and someone that he had met contacted him and said this hotel was for sale. So he bought this and during the Depression for $40,000 with 27 acres. They were probably happy to get that. So a lot of people on that sign he requisitioned for the hospital. Notice the word curable is almost gone because it's a lie. Just like his promotion. Well, a lot of people rolled out the red carpet for Norman. Some people all along the way just didn't like Norman. Always got to put him away. Well, unfortunately for Norman, one of his associates, he had a tiff with one of his associates, and that associate's brother was the Postmaster General. And so they got together and said, let's set up a sting with the Postal Service. They waited until some of those flyers that he was sending out with that big lie, I guarantee I could cure cancer in 6 weeks, 100% cure rate, total fraudulent. Caught some of those, and they put him away finally for mail fraud. All the things he was involved in, mail fraud put him away to Leavenworth Prison for almost 4 years. And that's his mugshot right there running right up on the wall there. So he gets out of Leavenworth and he goes to Miami, and he's living on his fabulous yacht, but he's not feeling so fabulous. Guess what he's got? Cancer. So 1958, at age 76, he died of cancer and cirrhosis of the liver. Do you think he treated himself with solution number 5? He knew exactly what happened to him if he did that, so I would have liked to see somebody watch him take it. I'm sorry, Norm. We don't want to wish anything bad